Hello folks, today's episode is a little different from what we usually do. Most weeks we talk about concurrent disorders, treatment approaches, or real-world insight from the front lines of addiction and mental health. And they're usually backed up by research and science. I'm Ron, your host and editor of Learning Moments. Welcome. But today the learning comes through story, because sometimes the most powerful truths don't arrive in clinical language or data charts. They arrive through the lives of ordinary people who show us what struggle and healing actually looks like. This is one of those stories. It's delivered via fiction, but couched in the crucible of many lives and their real experiences. Join me as we step into the life of David Carson, a hardware store owner in a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, and where the scars left by addiction and mental health illness often hide in plain sight. David has lived his entire life in this small town, born there, married there, buried family there. To outsiders, his life might look small, but as David says, there's nothing small about the weight we carry, the marks we bear, or the way we choose to heal. He calls them scars, visible and invisible, the kind that tell stories about survival, loss, and what it means to keep showing up. Every person in David's town carries them, just like in your town. Mrs. Henderson, who lost her husband and rebuilt herself piece by piece. Tom Bradley, who survived a mill accident but then found himself wounded again by prescription opiates. Jake, the veteran who can't sit with his back to a door. And Sarah, David's wife, whose eyes still carry the memory of their daughter's death. All of them are marked by loss, by love, by survival, and by trauma. One ordinary afternoon, everything changes. A scream echoes from the direction of the school. David runs towards the sound, along with half the town. A little girl lies motionlessly on the crosswalk. A driver stands frozen, whispering, "I didn't see her." The driver is Carl, a man who has driven the same route every day for 15 years, without a single incident, until now. In that moment, a new scar begins to form. David watches as the paramedics work, but what stays with him is not the scene itself. It's the look on everyone's face, the recognition that this wound will ripple through all of them. Because when trauma happens in a community, no one escapes untouched. That night, David can't stop thinking about scars. Not just Lucy or Carl's, but his own. He has spent years pretending not to feel the ache of his brother Michael's death. A man lost to addiction, alcoholism, and drugs, and to David's pride. When Michael came asking for help, David turned him away, convinced that tough love was the right path. It's only now, years later, that he realizes the real wound was not Michael's addiction. It was his own certainty, his fear of being hurt again. And so, a few days after the accident, David walks into the diner where Carl sits alone and begins a conversation that neither man will forget. David sits down and says quietly, "I killed a man once." Carl looks up, startled. David tells him about Michael, about the day he asked for help and David's refusal, about how shame and pride kept him from seeing that healing requires connection, not judgment. Carl listens, and then asks the question that every grieving person eventually asks: how do you live with it? David's answer is simple. You don't live with it. You live through it. The scars change you. It teaches you about consequences, about compassion, about what to do with the knowledge you gain. David realized that pretending his scars were invisible never made them disappear. It only made them fester. Maybe that is what most of us do. We pretend that our pain is private, that our grief is, or guilt, or trauma does not affect anyone else. But healing begins the moment we stop hiding. Because every scar, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, tells a story about survival, about what we have endured and what we have learned. So this week, instead of focusing on the science or the policy or the programs, I invite you to think about your own scars. Those around you, of the people that you love, your neighbors and your community. The scars everyone is hiding, the ones that still ache when the weather changes or when the weather doesn't change? What would happen if we stopped pretending they were invisible? What might begin to heal if we shared our stories instead of concealing them? That's the lesson from David Carson's world. It is fiction, yes, but it's also truth. The kind lived quietly in families and communities everywhere. Thank you for joining us today for this different kind of learning moment. And thank you for watching Learning Moments. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health or substance use issues, reach out to healthcare professionals or check out your local resources in your community. Until next time, remember that understanding is the first step towards change. This video is a companion piece to our written article titled Scars We Carry. You can find this and more articles, videos, and resources on Learning Moments at learningmoments, that's all one word, .substack.com. If today's learning moment resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Until we talk again, thank you for joining me today, and remember, change begins when we start talking. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and be kind. Bye for now.